Hello crafty cuties! We are going to make a wraparound journal in this tutorial, and I'm going to be using this gorgeous piece of Indian quilt. This came in the bohemian kits and the fabric packs. Now the sizes might vary a little bit, so just keep that in mind when I'm talking about what size I'm making yours. You may need to adjust yours a bit, but the sizing should be really pretty close. So these fabrics, I first of all have to say, are absolutely gorgeous. They have hundreds of hand stitches throughout each quilt. They're also double-sided, which kind of gives you a little bit more wiggle room to decide on what side you want to use. And they're actually thin. They don't have batting inside, which I think is great for us junk journalers to use this as a cover. And I'm just in love with these fabrics, and I hope that you guys love yours too. So I'm going to use this because it's just about the perfect size for what size journal I want to create today. Now I did want to mention that the kits also came with muslin, but it's about like 11 by 11 or 12 by 12 square, and a wraparound journal would work with this size if you wanted to do like a traveler's notebook size, because you'll have that extra piece right there. But I just want to give a quick tip. If you are wanting to use a smaller piece of fabric, and let's say you wanted it to be, you know, like 6 inches wide, but you don't have any extra fabric, you can easily just attach another piece of fabric along the way here. See, I would trim some of this off, and I would use this strip and sew it straight down on that edge, and then that would be the wraparound. So I hope that made sense. I just want to give that little tip if you're wanting to use like a smaller piece of fabric that maybe isn't wide enough. Okay, so this piece is about 15 inches by 10.5, and I'm gonna trim this down, but let's first of all see, okay, I'm going to figure out what size I want by using my book pages. So I already have my signature kind of put together. We will decorate this a tiny bit together as we go along, but I went ahead and put this together so that I can kind of see how big I want this journal to be. And this is also really going to help you out. I'm just using one signature, so one little booklet here. And I think there are about 15 pages in here. 15 full pages, so, you know, folded in half, 30. But if you want to use more than one signature, you can do that as well, but you're going to have to figure out what size you need your spine to be, or how much room you're going to need for that. But I'm gonna go ahead and, now I trimmed one more thing is I did trim these pages down just a little bit. I didn't want them to be quite so big, but I didn't lose much of the page. And those were the digital journaling kit from Mind Boretti on Etsy. These pages were in the kit, and I am so thankful we got to use them. Okay, so let me see. I want my journal cover to be just a little bit bigger than my pages. So I'm thinking right around here, 5.5 inches. So I think that's good. So I'm going to have mine be about 5.5 inches, and see, by putting my journal in here, I can kind of see how much extra space I'm going to need for the spine, but it's not a ton. And then I'm left with this amount for my wraparound, which I think is going to be perfect. So I can see that I will want to trim some off in length. And again, I like a little extra on top and bottom. So I am honestly just going to take my scissors and mark where that is, and then I can cut straight across. The other thing I want to mention is that these are the quilt pieces. They're probably not cut exactly straight, so you may need to adjust that as well, just to keep that in mind. Okay, so I have my little area marked here. I'm going to cut this, and then I'll tell you what this final size is, and I'm just going to follow these stitch lines here as my guide, but feel free to use something other than that if you want yours to be a little bit more perfect. This is going to be really simple, you guys. I'm going to keep it pretty simple, at least I think, and because I love the fabric so much, I'm really not going to add a ton of decoration, maybe just a little on the border or something like that. Now I have this gorgeous piece that I can set aside and use later. Okay, so I think I flipped that around, did I? No. Yes. There we go. That's right. Okay. I think I had it upside down at first, or maybe I didn't. Okay, so again, I'm just kind of placing to make sure I like this final size, and I do. So it is going to be about 8.5 in length, 8.5, and about 15 across. Now we have to decide what we want to add to the outside and the inside for decorating. And I definitely want to add some kind of trim to my little flap here. I think that's what I'm going to do. And then also keep in mind, you may want to make sure that your flap's going to be big enough so that you have a little bit of slack in there for when you fill up your journal. But really with this type of a fabric, it's kind of flexible. So it really doesn't have to be perfect. Now I'm thinking I want to add a pocket inside. And if you guys can't tell, I'm just making this along with you. Like, I have this idea in my head. I've made wraparound journals before, but I don't know exactly what I'm wanting to do. But I do want to add a pocket. So I'm going to use my muslin here, I think. Now I don't want the pocket to go all the way over on my flap. So I will, again, I'm just going to be using this as my guide throughout so I don't have to add like any measurement marks or anything like that. Okay, so I know that I'm folding it right along that line. So my pockets only need to cover this bottom half right here. And so I'm going to go ahead and trim down this muslin. And I am going to be using my sewing machine for this, but you don't have to. You could do hand stitching. You could use like a fabric glue. That would be fine. And I'm just gonna kind of cut along here. And also, you don't have to add pockets or decorations to the outside. I mean, especially with this fabric, I know this isn't straight, but I'll fix it later. Especially with this fabric, you could easily just wrap this around a signature and be good to go. So you know what? I have this extra piece here from what I had cut off. Maybe I'll actually use this as a little border just to kind of tie everything in, because why not use it? I could use it in the pages or something, but I think I'm gonna like that. So I'm actually going to go ahead and sew that on first. All right, I'm just gonna go ahead and stitch this on just right across. Okay, now I'm going to take that pocket and just try to line it up as best I can. And I'm going to keep a little extra kind of hanging over the edges so that I can trim it straight. Right, so I'm just going to do the same thing, just sew this on. And if you notice, I'm not trimming like frayed edges on my muslin at all. I just personally like that look. So you can trim that if that's something that you want to do. I'll go ahead now and just clean up around the edges as close to the edge as I can get. Now that we have our pocket, I'm not going to actually sew down the middle of the pocket, but you can do that if you like. I'm just going to keep mine open. Now I am thinking that I want to do just a little bit of decoration on the flap. Now I could straighten this out as well. It's not completely straight, but I know I'm going to add some kind of trim because I kind of like how it kind of breaks the two pieces apart. So I have my trim pack here and like some of my fabrics, and I'm just gonna kind of look through here and see. However, I think I already have an idea. I'm thinking that I want to actually add some trim down this way. And if you guys remember talking about color theory, or if you had seen my layered pocket tag, I talked a little bit about color theory and how colors that are opposite to one another on the color wheel, attract. So reds and blues are pretty opposite of one another. I would never think to grab blue, but I actually really like how this looks. So I'm thinking I'm going to do that, and I'm even going to keep the teal that's up at the top on. Now, these sari ribbons, they're not always perfect. So, for example, the one that I even have here has some holes in it. But I'm not worried about that. I'm not worried about making this journal perfect. In fact, these quilts, they're not all perfect. Some have patches, some have little stains and things like that. They're all cleaned, but you know, they have imperfections, and I still just find such beauty in these. So I'm not concerned about that at all. So I'm not going to go through and try to find a more perfect piece. I'm just going to use this one right here. So I really like that. So I'm just going to start by actually just stitching that on, since I already know I definitely want that. I may add some other things, maybe some sequins. That would look cute. So let's grab the sewing machine again. So I'm just going to do one stitch down the way so that the edges kind of can fray up, or like, I guess, turn up, so that we have some nice texture. So I'm just going to take my time, since this is not straight, and just make sure that I'm going down as close to the center as I can. To mention, if you're feeling overwhelmed by this, keep in mind that this is just decorating right here. Adding this and the pockets and anything else I'm going to do right now, it's just decorating. If you are feeling intimidated, skip this part. You can make a wraparound journal very simple, and it's still going to look very cute, especially if you have a nice fabric or a fabric that you like. But next, I may want to do more to this, but I know I also want to have some sort of a ribbon or something that's going to attach here, I think, and then it can kind of wrap around like so, and kind of just help keep it closed. So, okay, so I honestly randomly grabbed this ribbon right here, and I think it's going to be perfect, so I'm just going to use this one. It has like all these different colors in it, but it works well. So just figure out where I want to place it. And so I'm just going to sew this in place right here real quick. Okay, and by the way, this piece right here was about, I think it's about 24 inches. So I just used the whole thing, but I may trim some down. So I just lazily sewed that on. You can see I had to go over it a couple times, but that's all right. All right, now I'm debating if I want to do anything, and I'm just keeping my sewing thread ends, because I like them. I almost want to add some sequins, because I feel like that's just so bohemian, and it just goes kind of with it. I was thinking right down there, but I don't know. I totally wish I could ask you guys. So I went for the rhinestones, and I just hot glued all the way down. And by the way, you could hot glue any types of trims you want as well, and that works fine. But I did it off camera because my hot glue gun is out of camera view. Okay, so I'm really liking this, but I feel like I want to do one more thing. Now, also you can add fabrics to these, but personally, for a wraparound journal, I don't really like to do too much to like this cover, because it's going to be partially covered, you know? So that's why usually if I'm going to decorate, I just decorate the flap, but that's just me. So I think I'm going to grab some vintage buttons and maybe place one right here. So I have that blue, which I kind of like to add a little bit more blue, but I also have this really cool vintage button, and I put a few vintage buttons in each kit, the large kit and then the fabric packs as well. So hopefully you'll find a button that you like. Some are more plain, some are fancy. I don't know, I think, you know what, I think the red looks good on top of the blue. And since this is a big button, I'm gonna go through a couple times. I feel like you're lucky when you make it back through the first hole correctly. Okay, and then I'm just gonna tie this off on the back. Okay, let's see what it looks like. I think it's about time to move on to the book pages. And like I said, I'm not gonna do too much to them. I want this to be somewhat of a more naked journal, but okay, I really like that. I like it, guys. So that's basically the cover. That is so simple. So now all we have to do is decorate your pages, or if you are not decorating pages, it's just time to sew your pages in. You can do this traveler's notebook style as well, where you would have an elastic so that you can slip pages in and out. I'm not going to show that in this tutorial, but I definitely have traveler's notebook tutorials on my main channel if you want to check that out and get an idea of how you would do that. So simple. Okay, so let's see here. I pulled a black thread through. Let's move on to the pages then. I'm just going to take you page through page and we'll just start from there. So I'm going to start with the first page here. This is just some vellum paper. By the way, the pages I'm using in here are mostly pages from the kit. I used the full journal kit, the digital kit that came from Mind Beretti. You'll see that throughout here. I used coffee dyed paper, vintage book pages, coffee dyed paper, more. I used the vellum envelope that had, I think, the fabrics in it, dictionary pages. So far, most of this. Now, I did use a few pieces, this black page. This is just some scrapbook paper I had, and I only used a few pages of that, so you'll see I kind of planned these pages out because I want this part to be quick. I just have so many videos where I show decorating pages, and I wanted the main part of this video to be about the cover and the wraparound journal. Okay, I didn't get a chance to use very many of the bohemian fabric scraps that are gorgeous, so I'm going to try to use some of those throughout. And I'm going to go so fast, guys, that like I'm not even going to think about what I'm doing. I'm literally just going to grab things. Of course, I kind of pre-planned what my pages are, but I just mean I'm going to do this pretty quick. I'm just going to sew this on down here. Actually, you know what? I think I'm going to bring it down a bit and gather it up a bit in some places. I like to, when I'm doing decorating pages this way, I like to do both pages at a time, if that makes sense, so that the full page is done. And I just found this little scrap, and I'm literally just going to fold this over, make a tab. I forgot, I really wanted to do a video where I showed you guys some layered tabs, but I don't think I'm going to have a chance to do that. So let's add this here. I'm just going to sew this. I just folded the fabric over. Whoops. Okay. So one fun thing that you can do for layered tabs is add buttons. And maybe one more. So buttons are a really fun thing to add. And I'm just going to, I'm going to hot glue these on actually, so that it's quick. Also going to take a bulb pin, add a bell on, and we will put that on the tab as well. Kind of a lot going on, but I think it's kind of fun. And I'm going to stick it through one of the buttonholes, see how I like that. Yeah, I think that's pretty fun. So there we go. Okay, so we're done with this first full page. I'm going to set it aside, and I'm just going to kind of move on to the next. So I have this scrapbook paper here. Now, because the digital pages, they're just white on the back, which is totally fine, but I like to kind of cover them sometimes with like a pocket or fabric, or I just like to do something. So I'm actually going to just sew this on since the sewing machine's right here. Remember, you can use glue or tape in the place of sewing. It's just what I'm comfortable with. And I'm going to actually just go ahead and sew the three sides so the tops are open, and then we will have some pockets up there. Because I want it to be obvious there's a pocket up here, I'm going to use a scalloped hole punch and make a half circle punch here. Then it's also a little bit easier to slide something in and out. So that's all I'm going to do for this page right here. I have some coffee dyed paper next. I'm kind of wanting to leave a lot of things blank in here, but again, I also want to use this beautiful fabrics. So I think for one of these pages, just one, I'm going to sew this gorgeous piece of fabric here on just at the top so that we have a gorgeous little like tip in. And this will make a good spot for writing something special down, and so you'll still be able to use the whole page. And again, you could use hot glue or glue for that as well. So There we go. Yeah, I'm just gonna leave the rest of it blank and move on. Okay, so now we have this vintage book page. I don't really like to do a lot to these either. Not super fond of the inside of this, so I am gonna cover one page just to give more writing space. I'm using a piece of coffee dyed paper. I'm actually just going to rip off what I don't need down here. And I folded this in just a little bit so that this can fold in and out. So I'm just kind of looking where I need it on the page. And I'm going to sew this on because, again, I just like to use my sewing machine. And just straighten that up as best as I can on camera here. Getting it as close to the edge as I can as well. And I'm just going to sew straight down. And it keeps catching. There we go. Okay, so now we have a little fold in, fold out. Over here, again, I'm not so fond of this page. I like the florals because I think it kind of goes with the journaling kit. I love how Sophie included florals to this bohemian kit. So I'm thinking of taking, this is one of the tags from her digital kit. Thinking of placing this here, sewing it. So I'm gonna make this a tuck spot, but first I wanna add a little bit of black ink around the edges because I do have a lot of darker colors in this journal and I think this is just gonna make it look a little bit better. And I'm doing it pretty messy, which is what I was going for. Okay, line this up to the edge of the page, just sew around the sides. Went a little too far down. All right. Now we have a little tuck spot. And again, I'm not going to do anything to the flower sides. All right, we have coffee dyed paper. I'm just going to leave that, not do anything to it. We have a vellum envelope. I'm thinking I will actually make use of some of the fabric scraps or maybe the trims for this part. Just looking through my little bag here. This one's really pretty. Okay, so that I can kill two birds with one stone, I'm gonna go ahead and place this all the way across the bottom. So essentially I'm taking care of 2 pages since this folds in half. I'm just gonna sew this kind of close to the seam so it doesn't take up too much, it doesn't like close it up too much. This is the next page that we are working with. And I did already cut out, or I had a strip here. And I'm just gonna create this into a pocket, just like I've been doing for all of the pockets, where I'm just gonna sew around the edges. I love having pockets, even in like a naked journal, because I feel like you don't have to use it, or you can. You know, extra storage, or you can just kind of use it as a background. The dictionary pages, I actually put 2 together, and I'm gonna sew down the top and the bottom so it can be a pocket, or you can just use it as a page. Make a little tab like so. Okay, next up, more coffee dyed paper. I mean, I could be doing something. There's so many pretty elements, but I think I'm just gonna keep it blank. I'm just gonna try to fight the urge. We have another digital pages, and you know what, I don't even have to do anything to these. These are so gorgeous, but again, I like to line them with something, and I have this page right here. This one a little bit different. I actually just cut this piece in half, and I'm just going to actually take some washi tape and tape these on the edge so that it can just flap and open up, and it'll be easy to remove too if you do want some more white space. For some reason I can't find my favorite washi tapes right now, but this one is pretty gorgeous, and I mean, it matches perfectly, so I'm not mad at it. But I'm so curious where the heck I put all my pretty botanical washi tapes. Like, they're somewhere. Okay, so you can see I'm just adding a little bit of washi tape. Now, this washi tape that I have, it's actually pretty darn sticky, so I'm not going to reinforce it, but typically, guys, I don't trust washi tape. I would never just use washi tape in a junk journal by itself. However, again, I know that this one is pretty sticky. Of course, it's not sticking right now. I don't have it on the edge very well right there, but I'm going to tape the inside as well. And for the inside, I will just be careful and add a little bit of glue. So that's what I mean by reinforce it. Okay, so just go like that. And I'm gonna do that to the other side, so there we go. So now we have a little flap. Hey guys, I wasn't recording, I just made a little collage here, and I wish I would have been doing that more, but again, I'm not trying to decorate it too much. For the inside here, I think I'm gonna take one of my printable journaling cards and actually just washi tape that on so that, again, it's not permanent. The recipient can move this around or glue it down permanently. Okay, so done with that. Again, we have a coffee dyed paper, just gonna keep that blank. I think we're on to our last page, and I have cut out another little pocket. I love having pockets on the insides here, but I think I wanna spruce this one up a bit and maybe add a little bit of trim, maybe some fabric. So maybe I will do kind of a collage-y kind of thing in here. Ooh, this fabric's cute, isn't it? Okay, so I'm gonna sew these on real quick. Just straight down. Found this gorgeous little piece here in my fabric pack, and I was kind of thinking it looked cool right here because it's kind of see-through, and this, yeah, and it has this tassel, and I think I'm living for this. So I'm actually just gonna sew this on all the way around just for a pretty little touch. And I think we're done decorating the pages so we can finally sew them in. Alright guys, and I'm actually just gonna slip in one of the pockets here from Mine Beretti's kit. And I was thinking about sewing this onto some coffee dyed paper. Love the look, but I'm not gonna take the time right now to do that. I'm gonna slip that one in. I'm also gonna take one of my printables that has a little pocket here, and I just added a little fabric tab, put it in there just to kind of complete that. And now our signature is done. It's super nice and full, and we are ready to go ahead and sew this into our cover. All right. So we only have one signature. This is going to make it very simple. If you have multiple signatures, you're basically going to do the same step here, but repeat it for each signature. Okay, so I have my needle. I have it threaded with embroidery floss. Use a fun color if you wish. I just had this color in front of me. And I do about 2.5 times the length for the size of embroidery floss. I have an awl to poke holes. You can use really whatever you have that can poke some holes. And I have some paper clips. I think that's all we need here. So I'm actually going to start by, so make sure that everything's in place. Make sure that if you have smaller pages or anything, they're exactly where you want them to be. I already went through and made sure. And you're going to basically open up your book, just making sure that everything's like super duper lined up here. I kind of like to hold it together in the middle so that I know everything's lined up. And I'm going to start paper clipping these together, just the pages to start with, so that it's all going to be lined up nice and perfect. And if you can't tell, I've used these same paper clips over and over for binding, so they're a little worn out, but they still work. So this is really the important part to making sure that your binding holes are going to go through the exact center of your pages, because it can be really frustrating to go ahead and think you're punching through the center when you go through the side, and you go through, you know, the side of one of your pages, you poke a hole through it, It can be frustrating, but I've done it so many times, guys. Don't be discouraged if it happens. You just find a way to cover up the hole, or, you know, put some washi tape over it. Now I'm using a lot here because I have lots of little bits and pieces everywhere. I just want to make sure it all sticks exactly where it needs to go. Okay, so now what we are going to do, we want to line this up. So making sure that it is exactly where it needs to be on your fabric. Keep it in mind that the flap is that extra fabric. So I'm going to start off by poking the holes just through our book pages here. I'm using my awl, and I'm just eyeballing this, guys. It really doesn't have to be in any perfect spot. I'm just going to start one hole in the middle here, and if you want something like a book underneath you so you don't poke through anything else, go ahead, but just go slow and make sure that you're actually going through the center here. And I do that by kind of, you can see I have my book kind of open, kind of half open, half shut here. And that really helps me to be able to guide through the center. Okay, so I'm going to do one that's a little closer to the bottom. Really, you do not have to measure this. And one towards the top. If you want, you can definitely use a ruler and make it all perfect. But I'm just going to have 3 holes here. We're just going to be doing a pamphlet stitch. And now I'm going to be using these holes as my guide. I'm going to open this up now and just kind of reinforce those. And if you had everything lined up just right, then when you're opening it, the holes should still all be in the same spot, if that makes sense. So now I'm going to line this up so that I know exactly where the center is on the fabric. And I'll bring you guys in a little bit better. Okay, so now we're basically just going to make sure, just take your time on this part to make sure that everything's as straight as you want it to be, or, you know, as perfect as it can. And we're going to use these holes as our guide. But because we're sewing through fabric, we really don't need to make sure that we punch holes in the fabric first or anything like that. So I'm just going to go ahead and sew. Starting at the middle hole, I'm going to go ahead and make sure that everything's kind of taut. You know, you don't want anything to be loose or wrinkled up underneath you. I'm just going to poke this straight through. I'm kind of holding the fabric to the book right now. And then pushing that needle through. And now I'm going to close this just to make sure that this is going to be staying right in the center here. We're going to pull that through. Now I'm going to open that back up, and I'm just going to, you can use a piece of washi tape to hold this down if you want. I'm just going to kind of slip it under one of my paper clips so that it won't pull all the way through. Okay. Now while this is open, I'm actually going to take my needle, and I am going to use this hole, which I'm using as my guide, and poke a hole so that I know from the outside where I can sew back into. And take my own advice actually and paper clip this in a few spots so that the fabric and the book pages are together, because that is actually going to help quite a bit to make sure that things are not shifting around. Okay, so now we can sew back in. It's probably going to be hard for you to see, but there's a hole. I see the hole right here, and it looks like it's in line with our spine. So I'm going to sew back into that hole, and I'm going to do this very carefully so that I can make sure that I'm also going through my book pages here. Okay, there we go. And you want this end to be on the opposite side from where we started. So we started over here. We have this down the center, and so then we ended up over here. Now we can pull everything tight. We're going to make sure that it's all tight on the outside, and it is, and then we're going to just go ahead and tie our double knot here. and then you can trim the excess. And we are done sewing. We are done binding our pages into the cover. Just go ahead now and remove all of the paper clips. This is like my favorite part because you get to see the final product. So let's go ahead and close it up for the first time. Oh, I'm so excited. And you know, again, this, not again because I didn't say it already, but this fabric, it's very thin, it's very flexible. I think this fabric, or a lighter fabric, actually just any lighter fabric, is perfect for a wraparound journal. A faux leather would work as well, but this is just really going to give us a chance to have our journal bulk up, and it's going to be totally okay. It's going to expand really easily with the journal as it grows. But if you wanted something more sturdy, you can line the fabric with paper or a thicker fabric. So I'm just going to wrap this around a few times, and I'm just going to take the end and I'm just going to tuck it under there, and that's how this journal is going to close up. And I just love it. It feels great. I think this journal is going to be just so easy to work with because you can really just open everything up. We have pockets right here. You can stick, you know, pictures, or if you're using this like as a travel journal, which it would be great for, then you have those little pockets to stick things in it that maybe you'll use in your journal. And our journal is complete. This opens up nice and flat, like every single page. We have that flip out there. I mean, yeah, this is gonna be so easy to work with. So I'm really excited, and I'm feeling like I'm already like hooked on this type of journal. I hope that this was helpful to you guys and that you enjoyed seeing kind of a new style journal. Not a newer, just newer from me, I should say. And yeah, I hope that you guys enjoy it, and I can't wait to see what you guys create. I think this style would be super fun using the muslin as a base and maybe some of the bohemian fabric scraps, or I guess squares, and making it like a patchwork type journal. That would be awesome. So yeah, if you have any questions leave them down below. You know what, I'm gonna just go ahead and finish it off with a tassel. This is the bohemian bead, which I have the tutorial for in this video course, and the tassel that is also in the video course, and I just realized I had it up here and I thought, you know what, I think it's gonna be perfect on here. So let's see, I just have a little pin up here, so I would just simply add it on like so. That's perfect. I seriously did not plan that one out, and I love it. Oh my goodness. Okay guys, I will talk to you later. Bye.